Hey, Coach, it's us. Let's go. Good. You ready to do this? All right, I'm gonna change you over here in a second, and I'll read this one. Thanks. Beyond the Scoreboard time. Beyond the Scoreboard podcast brought to you here by Penn Ohio Bottled Water. It's Week 2 recap, Week 3 preview show here on the Lawrence County SportsNet. Powered by LCAP, let Penn Ohio Bottled Water do the heavy lifting and bring refreshing water straight to your home or work. And talk about doing the heavy lifting. We're going to get right to it with the... Well, heavy lifting is one way to put it, Coach. When you go, always doing 2 sports each year, football and basketball, the fun never ends with Coach Bradley. And, I don't know how he has 30 minutes of time probably between football practice and hoops practice to talk to us. But, Coach, thanks for joining us here on The Fun.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So, Coach, a 2-0 record to start the year. Unfortunately, couldn't get the third game in, but impressive wins, especially two impressive road wins against county foes here. Talk about the feelings right now down there at Old Lincoln High.
Yeah, well, week 0 games I think are always tough, and we went down and had a very tough game against Laurel, who, they're well coached, they're disciplined, and we did enough to win the game. Went to overtime. It's a great battle, and we were fortunate to come up on top. And then the Shannon game was outstanding effort by both teams. They're so well coached. They run a nice scheme offensively, defensively. I'm just very proud of our kids and how we stayed focused and really stuck to the game plan and were able to execute and come out on top.
It's the first win for Elwood City over Neshannock in nearly 2 decades. I mean, I know there's a lot of history lessons and not of the good kind for the most part in recent memory for Elwood City. Is that something that you as a coaching staff talk about? Is that something that you guys just completely ignore? I mean, I know in these day and age, the kids can't ignore it. How do you attack those sort of things?
We don't even acknowledge it. I was there 15 years ago, and most of our players we're in elementary school or kindergarten. So, they weren't a part of that. They're kind of creating their own identity. And, the work ethic has been terrific since I first came there. And, we're just looking to get out and play on Friday nights.
One of the big players we see each and every Friday night, Elijah Palmer-McCain. I mean, what more can you say? 200 rushing yards, and he catches a 59-yard touchdown pass. He's been Mr. Everything for you in your 3 years there at Elwood.
Yeah, he's a terrific kid, terrific young man, really patient runner, understands the blocking schemes, and, can catch the ball in the backfield and does a good job blocking too. And, our running back coach Juice talks about the 3-phase running back, and he's definitely one of them.
Well, what's it say, though, when, he doesn't have any, the big name sort of looks coming at him, at least as of yet, that he just continues to, be humble about it and say, hey, I'm gonna do what I can, and if they come, they come. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, he's focused on the here and now. He'll be able to play at the next level at some place, and, whoever gets him is going to get a good football player and a terrific young man.
Talk about the offensive line in front of him, Coach. I mean, I know you've been praising them big time, but obviously and unfortunately, a lot of times the offensive line sometimes is not recognized as they should be. And I know that you're a big supporter of your big guys in the trenches.
Yeah, it all starts up front, and fortunately for us, this year, unfortunately for us, the past 2 years. That most of those guys are 3-year starters in one way or another. They've come a long way. They've grown up. They've become mature, dedicated to the weight room, and they're just a special group up front.
The entire senior class, such a special group. I mean, obviously, it also helps when a lot of them had to play as freshmen and sophomores. But the development that you've seen on this team from one year to the next, even just from last year to this year, and just talk about how the biggest changes in a good way that you've seen with your boys here in the last couple of years.
Well, first of all, I'd like to commend the senior class. For sticking together. When you don't win a game for a few years, it's easy to walk away and find something else to do. Fortunately for me and for all of us, they stuck with it. They hit the weight room. They love the game, and they progressed. And I think, probably the biggest benefit that we have this year is that we have seniors and juniors playing, not, juniors and sophomores or sophomores and freshmen. My first 2 years, last 2 years there, I think we've had 4 and 5 seniors back to back. And when you're so young, you kind of get exposed a little bit because of the youth. But we're in a pretty good position right now with numbers in our classes. Hopefully that stays true, and we can be competitive for some time.
Coach, just in general, I mean, obviously we've been following you with, obviously with Lawrence County, and then even before that with Avonworth, with the hoops, and then obviously before that with football with Olsh and Stowe Rocks. What is the biggest challenge that you've had in not only coaching multiple sports at once, but doing it at such a high level and so successfully over the last 12, 15 years?
I don't know. I think it just comes down to communication. How you treat your players, talk to your players. Set expectations, set guidelines. Discipline could be a good thing. It helps raise the bar over time. And I don't know. I don't know about that, but if you stick to the plan, you come out and win some games.
We're talking here on the Lawrence County SportsNet podcast, Beyond the Scoreboard podcast, and we got Coach Dan Bradley coming off the bench. I'm James Dotson. Here's Tim Continenza.
Hey, Coach, good to talk to you again. Last week against Neshannock, what a great win on the road for your boys and everything going on. Talk about just that, going on the road and getting that win. That was really important against Neshannock, someone that you've had trouble in the past with. And then just talk about the fourth quarter where you guys really just went on a couple of nice drives and kind of took control of the ball game.
Yeah, it was a great game. We came out, we were able to run the ball early. They adjusted, like good teams do, and made it a little bit more difficult for us. We played outstanding defense. We didn't give up the big play for the most part. We were able to contain Zacco, the quarterback, and I thought our guys did a great job. And then, we were talking a little bit ago, our offensive line took over in the fourth quarter, went for it on fourth down a couple times, and moved the sticks and ran it out.
Yeah, going for it on fourth down, that's what I wanted to ask about next, Coach. I mean, is that obviously you have a lot of confidence? Is that something that you maybe think a little bit differently because it's a non-conference game, or is that just, hey, I'm in this situation, I don't care what game it is, we're going for the win?
A combination of a bunch of things. I thought our defense was playing well. I like our offensive line. Last week our long snapper was injured, so we had our second guy in, and our punter's injured. First week of the season we punted it, from a pro set, from a scrimmage set, and our punter hit the back of a lineman. So to say that I don't have a lot of confidence in our kick game, last week would be correct. We're getting our long snapper back this week, so that'll help half of it. But, I just thought, if we could hang on to the ball, they can't score. Last time, against Laurel, they went down and scored late. So I just figured, let's keep the ball, see what we can do. If it doesn't work out, defense is playing well. So we just rolled the dice and it worked out.
Defense, that's the main word, and something, again, that we haven't been able to say the last couple of years. I would say he's been putting points on the board the last couple of years, but unfortunately been giving them up. But in your first 2 weeks, you hold Laurel to just 7 points in an overtime game, and to hold the Neshannock team that was averaging over 40 just to those 3 scores. What's give a shout to some of those guys on defense. I mean, we talked big time about Gagrick and O'Brien with their big sacks on that late possession, but it's an 11-man defense that's been playing really lights out so far.
Yeah, Kane Dawsey is another one of those linebackers who had an outstanding year last year. He's playing well. Everybody's playing well. PJ Dubois is our nose, and he really commands double teams and triple teams in the middle. Big body. He's about 6 foot, about 350, but he's surprisingly a good athlete. He can run. He has good lateral movement. He can throw a ball. He can catch. He can punt. I just wish he could cover a punt if he could kick it a little bit better. But in our probably most improved, unit is our secondary, and we covered well with 2 games, and like I said, they're seniors and juniors now, not juniors and sophomores. So I think a year of maturity helps, and we'll certainly have to play better this coming week against Mohawk.
Talk about your quarterback, Chris Smiley, having to deal with you as a coach twice in the season. One of, if not the only ones, I believe, that gets to go straight from the gridiron to the hardwood. But just talk about what you've seen development-wise from him as a person as much as anything, getting into his senior year.
Person, he's just a good kid. Fun to be around. He studies the game. He's gotten better every year. And he didn't have a lot of passing numbers last week. Some of that had to do with the Shannon's a good team. Some of it had to do with some drops. But outside of that, I thought he managed the game very well. A lot of times he didn't hang on to the ball. He would tuck and scramble, get positive yardage. It really put us in second and medium as opposed to second and long. So just command of the game, feel for the game. And, in time, his passing numbers will rise.
Coach, one final question for you. 2-0 to start the year, and you get to face yet another local county opponent here. Mohawk, just talk about what you've seen from the Mohawk team on tape, and just what we can expect from what's going to be an electric conference opener there at Helling Stadium for you.
Yeah, Coach does a great job with them. They're well balanced schematically, offensively, and defensively. Their players know their roles, and they stick to it. Offensively, they want to run the ball between the tackles. The bootleg play action, you get found on the edge. And they got receivers that can run deep and catch the ball. So they've got playmakers, on the outside and found in the scramble game. Defensively, they're big, tough to run the ball against, and they can man you up. And they have a couple good athletes back there that have good ball skills, and they challenge you.
It's going to be a challenge. I know your Wolverines up for it, trying to make it a 2-0 to a 3-0 start, and most importantly, get 1-0 in conference play. Coach Dan Bradley, really appreciate you coming in and chatting with us, and we wish you best of luck here on Friday night.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. We'll talk to you soon enough. Thanks again to Coach Dan Bradley on the Lawrence County SportsNet podcast, the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast here, delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water. Tim Continenza, you got to see that game up close and personal with a lot of not bottled water, by the way, in that one on Friday night there at Neshannock. A place that is very, very difficult to win. I'll get the exact numbers, but in the last 12 years, there's only been 6-7 losses by Neshannock at home.
Yeah, and it's been I want to say over 10 years since Elwood City was able to get a win there.
Yeah, 2006, so almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years. It was an impressive win. It really, truly was. What they were able to do, kind of what Coach was talking about, being able to roll the dice a few times, keep control of the ball, keep Neshannock defense on the field. And I think that was really important in the second half. And then they were able to really control what they needed to do to win the ball game. And Neshannock probably looks back and says, well, we made some mistakes along the way that kind of hurt our opportunities, but that's a lot has to do with the play that Elwood City had in that game. And it is this is an interesting team. You've got an offense that is growing from last year, that has experience coming back. Obviously, you got EPM we talk about all the time, but you got Smiley, like Coach said, kind of a manager quarterback. He doesn't have great stats when you look at it. He's 13 for 33, 215 yards, but he does what he needs to do. He tucks and runs when he has to. He runs the offense. He doesn't do more than he's asked to do, and that's what's necessary at certain levels. And when you have a feature back like Palmer McCain, you have to take advantage of it. And you got to get some of your receivers involved, maybe a tight end involved type scenario. Get a different look once in a while. But this is going to be an interesting matchup, I think, against Mohawk. Mohawk has that wide open offense, so their defense is going to be challenged.
Yeah, how about this for the stat? In the last 60 games, so over the last 12 years, Neshannock had only lost 8 home games.
Yeah.
And so, winning up there is very difficult.
Man's job.
And, not to mention this, that's only the 5th time they've lost. Neshannock has lost to a Lawrence County team in the last 12 years as well. So,
wow.
Big time numbers. But, Coach talked about it. We're not going to talk about the numbers game because a lot of those don't matter. Different group, different kids. I mean, they were barely even alive at that point too.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, every year's a new challenge for every team out there. What you did last year really has no bearing on this year other than billboard material, motivation. And you got a program that's building in Elwood City, and I think that's what we're seeing. Let's
bring in Eric Thomas coming in virtually here as well. Eric, you were there Friday night as well for the long game with the weather delay. And we didn't really talk with Coach about the weather delay, but just working through that nearly hour-long delay, keeping the team focused and motivated. Impressive to come out on the road at the end of that and really take control. They never trailed in the game.
No, they never did, and guys. And sorry, I'm not with you in person tonight. I just got to say the Pittsburgh traffic is atrocious tonight. I can't stand it. It's driving me nuts. But anyway, it's good to be with you. Yeah, look, I really think that the delay hurt Neshannock more than anything because they had a ton of momentum when they were going in right there at the end of the second quarter, and then all of a sudden, with 2 minutes and a couple seconds left, they have to yank everybody off the field. It's 45 minutes. They kind of cooled off. Elwood's offense is not really anything that requires – I mean, they hand the ball off to Elijah Palmer-McCain, 25, 26 times or whatever it was for 200 yards. It wasn't like they were going to come out and all of a sudden throw the ball 65 times and, lengthen the game or look for big plays in the passing game. They were going to come out and run the ball, and Neshannock had to play from behind just about the whole night. I think that the delay actually hurt them and stalled out their momentum and the style of offense that Dan Bradley wanted to play in that game, where he was going to pound his top player and pound what is really maybe the best player we have in the entire county, worked to their advantage. I mean, he played that up about as good as you could after that long delay.
And not to mention using that as kind of the fake halftime, but still getting the long touchdown pass on a beautiful pass and an even better catch in traffic by Palmer-McCain. Just showing right there, Eric, how good he is in all facets of the game. I mean, it wasn't our official play of the game, but that one was about as much of a turning momentum point as there was.
Yeah, that completely stole the momentum back from Neshannock. And, we sort of kicked around some things after the game last Friday about the Elwood offense, and they don't necessarily have an alpha at the receiver position. I think they have guys that are good. I think they have guys that are really trying to break out and kind of become that go-to wide receiver. But the best player, hands down, and Smiley threw a great pass, good ball. I mean, Palmer-McCain had to make a great adjustment through the defenders to get it, but it was still a good pass. It dropped right into his hands at a high point. He went to go get it, and he just outran everybody else. The Elwood offense, to me, really picks and chooses the times that they want to change things up and that they want to surprise you with that kind of stuff. Until they find a bona fide number one wide receiver that will consistently catch the ball, that will get them first downs, that'll be Chris Smiley's top target. I still think that's a work in progress. He's going to be their best offensive threat, whether it be running or throwing, and he did both on Friday against Neshannock.
Let's take a look at that from our MVP insurance MVP of the game. Here's that play from Chris Smiley to Elijah Palmer-McCain.
Clock again down to 36 seconds to go in the first half. Palmer-McCain in the backfield. Smiley to throw it on second. Going to look long down the field. Palmer-McCain makes the catch. Somehow the adjustment, and he is going to take it to the house for the touchdown.
Yeah, I didn't catch the defender for Neshannock. He came make a play on the ball, but was just whiffed on it, and that's because McCain cut in front of him and made a great catch and then was able to do it in stride and take it down the sideline, 59 yards for the touchdown.
The adjustment in the air and taking it then to the house, a big part of that one there. Tim, just describe that a little bit more of just how incredible that play is in traffic to basically go and high point the ball.
And my memory serves it, there was like two defenders in that area. Mm-hmm. So the ball was in the air, and he kind of cut in between the two of them and got in front of it and was able to get make a little leap towards it and grab it. And just from that moment on, it was in stride, and it was just a race to the goal line. And, here's an interesting stat. I mean, to make Eric's point even more valid, is he's only caught two passes this year. Mm-hmm. You know, and he's their offense. They're going to find ways to get him involved in different ways. Yes, he's the Batman. They need a Robin of some sort to take some pressure off of him. But the bottom line is, you know, he's really doing the job. 52 carries, 345 yards this year, 3 touchdowns already, 1 receiving also. And then you look at two catches for 73 total yards. I mean, he's making plays when the ball's in his hands, and that's what they're going to have to continue to do.
Their Robin, though, might be the guys on defense. Those back-to-back sacks late in the game by Luciano Gagric, that was our play of the game, but then immediately after, could have given play of the game, really, to the next sack by Declan O'Brien. Let's take a look at our Melee Chiropractic play of the game there from Friday night.
2nd down and 9 from the 30. Mazzocco fakes, looks, pressure, steps up. Gino slips away from 1, from 2, can't slip away from 3 as Luciano Gagric steps up to make a huge defensive stop for Elwood City with 5:21 to go.
Gagric.
To both of the sacks, that one and the O'Brien one right after it, I think also very important. He had some time at first. It was almost a coverage sack, but then, you know, to get the elusive Gino Mazzocco, I think impressive as well, Tim.
It's anytime you get to Mazzocco, it's impressive because he is elusive. He's able to move to his left and to right, and he's able to tuck the ball and run. So when you're out in kind of open spaces and you run him down and you get a hold of him and you don't let go, that was huge. It was a big play in the game, and it was a big part of the fourth quarter. The way the defense rose up to the challenge of making big plays when they needed to, and the offense continued to, you know, round up first downs and move that clock along. And that was really what any team wants to do on the road, especially in a conference game, or I should say in a county game.
In a county game, not conference yet. Those come up beginning this Friday night, though. We will preview all those. What we're going to do is we're going to step aside. Thanks again, Coach Dan Bradley, for joining us here for our Off the Bench segment. When we come back, we'll recap the rest of the games there from week 2, or the 3rd week of the year. We'll recap all those and start preparing for this Friday's game when we return on the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. It's delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water.
Thank you for calling Axe. Where can we take you today?
To work, to the store, to Grandma's house. Axe can get you there, but it's much more than a ride. It's a joyride.
I'm helping people. I'm getting them out of their house. I'm taking them to their doctors, to the grocery store.
They say I'm entertaining. Okay, we laugh, we joke, we sing, we tell stories.
They're like family to us.
Even if it's the same day, to schedule your joyride, call Axe today.
Don't get left out to dry. Call the Penn Ohio Bottled Water Company for the fastest and most efficient bottled water delivery service in the area. Penn Ohio offers bottled water ranging from 16.9-ounce bottles to 5-gallon jugs, perfect for your next event or office water cooler system. Also, don't forget to ask about their custom labeling options. Visit PennOhioBottledWater.com for more information and to get a quote on their delivery services. Whether it's at home, in the office, or on the sidelines, Penn Ohio has you covered.
Penn Ohio has you covered. We're glad to have you covered here as we take a look at the week that was and the week that will be in WPIL and District 10 football action here from Lawrence County. We mentioned that first game, 28-21, Elwood City getting their first win over Neshannock since 2006. We'll talk about some more potential milestones coming up here for Elwood City in a moment. The other game we had coverage of, the game, one of the couple games that wasn't last week. Mohawk at Shenango. Mohawk led 14-0 midway through the second quarter when that game was postponed. Unfortunately, the 75th all-time matchup between the Wildcats and the Warriors, Tim, it technically did not happen.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Just the rain happened, or the lightning, I should say, is happening, and it's unfortunate. You want to see games played, period. Tough situation for Shenango, missing the previous week, and just wanted to get back into rhythm and get to normal of a regular, week where you prepare for a game and actually play it, and get through that first week back. And unfortunately, that did not happen. And it's I'm sure it's been a long 2 weeks for that program, and it's nothing can be more satisfying than when Friday arrives and they can actually play again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And Eric, both that game and the Newcastle game, it's disappointing you don't get a chance to finish them. They go down as suspended games that will not be resumed. Essentially a no contest in the end, I guess, is the
official.
Yeah. They didn't want to use that term, no contest, but the other interesting thing that I think a lot of teams aren't even looking at, the WPIL and the PIAA said flat out the stats count for that game, not the record, but like if you have a kid who ran for 100 yards or like he was approaching a milestone, you can count those statistics. So for the most part, it appears most teams just electing to say that the game never happened. So that Cash Stratton 54-yard touchdown run we saw technically didn't happen, apparently.
Well, they got to come up with some kind of solution for these rainouts. I understand with like ref shortages and things, maybe you can't come back the next day or whatever, but they have to do something as far as, look, if the game hits a certain point, whether it be the third quarter, whether it be halftime, kind of like the 5.5 inning rule in baseball, have to do something to get those. No reason why, if the game doesn't count, stats do. That makes absolutely no sense. These kids aren't playing for money. They're not playing for the most part, NIL or anything like that. They don't have goals to hit as far as yardage or anything. If the game doesn't count, the stats shouldn't either, but come up with a better solution for getting these games in. You can't build buys in, obviously, because, then we're talking about starting the season like in July, but something has to be done to make sure that these games can be played. This is getting a little ridiculous this season.
Yeah, we were chatting after the games on Friday night, and first off, a clarification on all that, because if there's 1 second left in a game and there's a lightning delay and both coaches don't agree that the game is over, it doesn't matter if the score is 100-0. Technically, it's not over, which is also just kind of ludicrous, but that's officially insane how it's written. But yeah, when we were all talking on Friday after the game, it was, we have most of these conferences are 3 conferences of 6 or 3 conferences of 7. You can very easily combine those into 2 bigger conferences, and then you don't have any non-conference games, or maybe just a week 0 non-conference game. I know it's good to have some of these games before you get right into conference play, but it wasn't 5 or 6 years ago in the WPIL that you were in conference, in region, in section, whatever it is you want to call it across the state. You were in there right away. Every game has to matter.
Well, if you're going to only play 9 games, and that's what the schedule is. You can play 10, but it's really 9. Then you have to make sure that you get them all in. Mm-hmm. You got to find a way. You have to have a contingency plan. And maybe that contingency plan is not necessarily what everybody wants, but you have to either come back on Saturday or take a thought process and say, all right, the first 3 weeks of the season, there's going to be 2 Saturday games in each conference. What member that is. Simply for A, you'll get more of the officials available for that. And B, you would at least, like, for example, let's say the Mohawk game with Shenango was Saturday instead of Friday. Potentially, it would have been able to be played, and you wouldn't have that delay. If we, like the game that Eric and I had, they continued to play. They wanted to play, and they found a way to get the job done. If they suspended the game with 2.5 minutes left in the second quarter, then they can come back on Saturday and finish it. They have to have a contingency plan of some sort. And the only thing, off the top of my head to say is early in the season, weather's going to play. August and September, you get thunderstorms. That means lightning. This is going to be part of just where we live. This is the area. It's going to happen. So you have to have a contingency plan. And the only way to do that is either play Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. You're going to have to say, okay, we're going to have a Thursday night game here, a Saturday night game here, and then we'll have Friday. And yes, it's a long weekend, but chances are you'll get all the games in.
as long as there's no games in Brazil that that Eric Thomas has to go and deal with there. That game again, 14-0, but Mohawk looked very strong, running the football especially. Newcastle in their game, they were trailing Highlands 7-6. About 5 minutes remaining in the first quarter of that one. Nate McKnight actually had taken the opening kickoff, 95 yards for Newcastle's only touchdown in that game. There was another game up here in Lawrence County on Friday that was suspended, and the teams decided to play on Saturday. And I think that's a good call for both teams looking for their first win. Unfortunately for Laurel, they lose to the road team Riverside by a 9-7 scoreline. Very similar to how the Shenango New Brighton game went back in week 0. The Laurel gave up a safety on a holding call. After the free kick, Riverside goes down for a touchdown. That's their only point scored in the entire game. And the worst part of it, Eric, is that Laurel had 2 chances late in the fourth quarter to win it with a I think it was a 26 and a 24-yard field goal attempt. Maya Jarrett pulled hers to the left, and then freshman Tony Guyowitz tried one as time expired that was pushed off to the right. So Laurel 0-3 to start the year. It's been a long time since we could say that about the Spartans.
Yeah, and their schedule doesn't get any easier. I mean, they still have Southside left. They still have Neshannock left. I think they still have Rochester left. We'll see what they're like on Friday night.
Oh, and Bishop Canevin this week, by the way.
And Bishop, yeah, exactly. Bishop Canevin, that's not going to be easy. They just destroyed Steel Valley last week. So that's showing that they kind of have some teeth again. And, the other thing, look at their total scores, James. They are 14 points away from being 3-0, or at least – say like 9 points away from being 2-1. And that's a big difference because as the schedule gets tougher for this team, we see teams this season where the schedule is front loaded like a Mohawk is, and then it sort of gets a little bit easier. You throw Northgate into Laurel's schedule too. They're 2-1, and you start kind of wondering where these wins are going to come from for this team. And they still have issues running the football. I know Lucas Santini had a monster game against Mohawk. We were there for that. So we know that they can throw the football. We know they can rely on him. We know the defense is tough, and that's evident by the fact they've lost 3 games by 14 points. But I just don't know where some of these wins are going to start coming from because their schedule is absolutely brutal the rest of the way.
At least they get their last non-conference out of the way right now against, yes, a juggernaut of Bishop Canevin. But
I guess that's the silver lining is that even though they're 3 losses, they won't be held against them at all. And they can build on this to get better as they get into conference play here in a week. You got to look for a silver lining, and that's something I'm sure they're talking about. We're just a few plays from winning games. We could legitimately be 3-0 or 2-1, and that's not out of the question. The problem is we are where we are at 0-3, and we have Bishop Canevin this week, and then we get into conference play. So let's get ready, play today, and play, Friday the best we can, and try to win that game and build momentum going into conference play. But I guess that's the thing that they got to hang their hat on is these first 4 games of the season really don't mean anything. Kind of like a long preseason, as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, it'll matter in terms of seeding if you make it into the playoffs, but in terms of quals itself, does not matter. And that's kind of, I think, the route Union's gone with. They're very difficult, playing 2 state-ranked teams in Neshannock and Washington. Again, played tight. They were down just 7-6 at the end of the first half was Union, but Washington kind of wore them down with that big front in the second half. 35-6 was the final. Again, a game I think that was closer than the scoreboard suggests, but Scotties are 0-2. Again, does not matter until they play Riverside here on Friday night. And the final game up in District 10, how about this one? Eric, I want to hear your thoughts about Wilmington breaking a 28-game regular season winning streak that Northern Bedford had, a 21-19 game. And, by the way, we'll get into this a little bit more. Wilmington did it without their top rusher either.
Yeah, how about that? And showing some fight from that team. I think they played the toughest game of anybody in the non-conference when they went to Ohio and played Hubbard a couple weeks ago. And I think that really has prepared them for what's coming in District 10. You're starting to see now, James, and this is where it's going to get really fun. We've talked so much about District 7 and 1A and how loaded this thing is. And now you throw a Canevin in the top 10 in the state, according to Penn Live. Neshannock is still a top 10 team. We go on and on about it. Don't know what Rochester is going to be again yet, but District 10 is now starting to come around as well. And this is going to be a really fun race to watch Wilmington the rest of the way. And if they can get that kind of performance without one of their best players again, if they need it, that might be your team that somehow sneaks out of this Western part. I still say throw a dart, but that really shows a lot of what this team is made of when they can do something like that and not have one of their best athletes or best assets on the field for them.
Yeah, their Farrell game coming up will be a fun one, but Farrell is Class 2A. They do the mixed regions in District 10. So that'll be a fun one coming up in a couple of weeks to really test what Wilmington has. But yeah, if they can weather the storm, get Mitchell Tree back here in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be a lot of fun to see what that Hounds team can become. So Newcastle Highlands, Mohawk Shenango did not play officially. Elwood City 28 over Neshannock, 28-21. Wilmington 21-19 over Northern Bedford, and Laurel losing to Riverside 9-7 on Saturday. Union also falling on Friday night to Washington 35-6. There's your LCAP recap of all the games from a week ago. What we're going to do now, it's our time for our segment here called Around the County, and we have 5 county updates coming for you, folks. 5 county updates from different schools. Just going to give you a quick lowdown of some of the things happening at their school. So you hope you enjoy Around the County here on the Lawrence County SportsNet Beyond the Scoreboard podcast.
High school to discuss the weekly sports recap. Hello, this is Lucas Walzer coming to you from Neshannock High School to discuss the weekly sports recap. The girls tennis team had a big win on Tuesday versus Riverside to improve their record to 2-3. On Friday, the girls team competed in the MAC tournament at Beaver High School. Maddie Arrow, Jenny Parada, and Giada Capabianco reached the quarterfinal in a field of 17 teams. The girls tennis team looks to find success Wednesday at the Whippeal sectional tournament against Blackhawk. The girls' volleyball season kicked off last week against 2 tough opponents. The season opener versus Laurel ended in a Lancer loss. The Lancers won the first set against Laurel, but then lost the next 3. Their second game of the season versus Elwood was a different story. The Lancers lost the first 2 sets and were on the brink of defeat before rallying back and winning 3 straight to capture the first win of the season. The boys soccer team continues to have a great season. They are currently sitting at a 5-1 record. The leading scorer for the Lancers is Zayden Herb, who has 15 total goals through 6 games. The Lancers will have 2 section games this week against Beaver County Christian High School and Eden Christian Academy. The golf team wrapped up their regular season schedule on Tuesday with a win against Mohawk, finishing with a 6-3 record. The girls team competed in MAC on Thursday with Maddie DeSanti shooting the low team score of 74-18. The boys have their MAC competition on Monday and have the Whippeal completion on 17th of this month. The cross-country team opened their season at the red, white, and blue meet at White Oak. The Lancer boys placed 2nd overall with 4 boys individually medaling: Brendan Burns, Nicholas Bender, Stephen Almanzar, and Raymond Jackson. After talking with the boys, many of them said that they will adjust their training to include more hills because White Oak will be the same location for their Whippeal this year. That's all from Lancer Country for now. For Around the County, this is Lucas Walzer for Neshannock's Weekly Sports Recap, reporting for LC SportsNet.
I'm Jackson Saunders.
And I'm Ashton May.
And we're your WLTV News, giving you your recap of all the sports of the week.
The varsity football game got postponed last Friday night and was moved to Saturday afternoon. In a close game, they fell short 9-7 to Riverside. Jackson Saunders scored 1 touchdown, with Lucas Santini and J.J. McBride both having an interception. The football team will take on Bishop Canavan this Friday at 7 p.m.
The varsity volleyball team won last Friday against Mohawk in 3 games. It was a big section win, and during it, Tori Atkins had 15 kills and 8 aces. Adding on to their victory, the Lady Spartans topped Union in 3 games on Monday. Their next game is Tuesday against Beaver Falls.
The varsity golf team competed in the MAC Invitational on Monday. Eli Benstrom tied for 7th, and both Seth Gilmore and Dylan Dugan had a great day as well.
The cross-country team competed in the West Middlesex Big Red Invitational. Laurel placed 22nd with a score of 606. Aiden Mack placed 19th with a time of 17:20. And Valerie Hauser placed 23rd with a time of 22:13. On Tuesday, the cross-country team had their first dual meet against Elwood City. The varsity boys, Aiden Mack, finished third with a time of 18:30, followed by Patrick Doherty, Isaiah Servideo, Aaron Mack, and Landon Savo. In the varsity girls, Valerie Hauser finished in second place with a time of 24:36, followed by Brooke Chidio.
Welcome to Shenango's Sports Wrap-Up. I'm Michael.
I'm Terry.
For this week, volleyball played Union and Beaver Falls and beat them both 3-1. And golf also played Elwood this week but lost.
For your cross country, we had the Big Red Invitational last Saturday, and a special medal. Michael Fleece got medal 38 out of 194 in the 5K. And football game got canceled against Mohawk due to weather, definitely. So that's all for your sports recap.
Have a good week.
Hey Union community, this is Ellie Smith and Kenzie Siddell, broadcasting for LC SportsNet. Earlier this week, the Scotties volleyball team took on Cornell. Both JV and varsity won, with JV winning in a landslide in only 2 sets. Varsity won in 3 sets. Charlotte Dorello led in kills with 8. Olivia Benedict had 7 aces and Miera Gunn had 5. They host Rochester at home on Thursday in their second section game of the season. They then compete in the MAC tournament on Saturday. As of now, they are 1-0 in section play.
Union's cross-country team competed against Elwood City, Beaver County Christian, and Laurel. Mackenzie Hedrick placed 7th with a time of 40 minutes and 6 seconds. Union's golf team competed in the MAC tournament for golf on Tuesday. Landon Eckert shot an 83, Evan DiNardo shot an 85, and Jalen Pease shot an 86. They are also back in section play today against Neshannock. The Scotties football team takes on Riverside on Friday.
That's a wrap for the Scotties this week. This is Ellie
and Kenzie
with LC SportsNet.
This is Manny Retort reporting this past week's recap of Warrior Sports. We can start it off strong with the reigning Newcastle Athlete of the Year, Jackson Shadle. He's continuing his dominance as he won the Big Red Invitational once again. We can move into our boys soccer team. They have had a tough start to their season, but got their first win over Elwood on Saturday, but then they dropped a nail-biter to Riverside Monday night 1-0. The girls, on the other hand, they've started off their season pretty strong. They had some time off going into their game against Freedom, but that didn't affect them much as they took down the Bulldogs 2-1 in a big section game. On to volleyball, it's been nothing but a roller coaster for the Lady Warriors. They started off the week strong Monday with a sweep on Freedom, but lost to Elwood last night 3-1. The Lady Warriors are now 500 as their record is 3-3. Mark's golf team, they had their struggles early on, but now they're back in the playoff hunt with a thriller of a section win over Shenango 223-219. They look to continue their hot streak with matches versus Elwood and Union. Well, that's all from Warrior Country. For Around the County, this is Manny Retort of Mohawk High School, reporting for LC SportsNet.
Big thanks to all those high schoolers from 5 of the 8. We got 5 of the 8 this week. We're going to go for a perfect 8 for 8 next week across the county. But big thanks to all of them and all the teachers helping us to put that together to give a little love to the other sports going on across Lawrence County. And there's plenty going on. I mean, you already got tennis tournaments have begun here, Tim. You're going to have cross-country championships. Golf is getting ready for postseason action. And obviously volleyball and soccer in full swing.
Fall sports are here across the board right now. And you know, we've already covered at least 3 of them. We've had the soccer, the volleyball, and football right now. And I know you have plans for the golf, and we'll see what else transpires, you know, as this fall season continues. But it has been a action-packed August and September, and we're only 11 days into September.
Maybe we'll have to check out Jackson Shadle again for the Tri-County cross-country meet as well. I know that's coming up here soon. Oh, by the way, we're about 2 weeks away, exactly 2 weeks away, actually, from the Lawrence County Band Festival.
I was just going to mention that.
So keep an eye on that, because we might actually do a special podcast from Taggart Stadium for that one. So stay tuned. Well, we have some things maybe up our sleeve for that one as well. We're overdue for another break. We're going to take a quick one. When we come back, we're going to look at our first power rankings of the year for Lawrence County, and then we'll break down this week's games. A slate of 7 coming your way. We'll have 2 of them on Friday, and one of those games on Saturday we won't be covering, but it will be happening on Saturday. 7 total games. We'll look at them all when we return here on the Lawrence County SportsNet Beyond the Scoreboard podcast.
I love what I do because coming in every day is different.
How can you not enjoy these kids coming up and hugging you and giving you these great smiles all throughout the day? You guys ready?
Seeing the progress that our kids make every single day is one of the reasons I love coming to school.
What should we do? We have fun.
LCAP Early Learning Centers is hiring. Help empower young minds in Lawrence County and become a superhero today. Apply at lcap.org.
Don't get left out to dry. Call the Penn Ohio Bottled Water Company for the fastest and most efficient bottled water delivery service in the area. Penn Ohio offers bottled water ranging from 16.9-ounce bottles to 5-gallon jugs, perfect for your next event or office water cooler system. Also, don't forget to ask about their custom labeling options. Visit PennOhioBottledWater.com for more information and to get a quote on their delivery services. Whether it's at home, in the office, or on the sidelines, Penn Ohio has you covered.
Revving you up for another good Friday night of football action. By the way, though, it starts tomorrow night. Lee and Jay Moan will have the call. Elwood City against Laurel. Volleyball action. 7 o'clock-ish start there from Laurel High School. Matt Flannery will be there as well. Big shout out to our producer, always doing the hard work here for us. Big thanks to him always for what he's doing here on the podcast and on Thursdays and Fridays and just about any day of the week that he can get away from home, which is every day, because he doesn't want to be at home. He wants to be here chatting some sports with us. I'm glad you're here with us on these Wednesday evenings, or if you're listening archived on YouTube or on Spotify. I'm James Dotson, Eric Thomas, and Tim Continenza along with us. We said they'd be coming up. Let's get into it. Our power rankings, we kind of went through and did a rankings of how we feel the 8 teams in the county. Essentially, it's if they're playing against each other, how would it end up? And it's also based off of how they have looked so far and what the actual results are. So we're gonna give you our top 5. Coming in at number 5, we have Mohawk 1-1. You could say probably would have been 2-1 the way they look like they started against Shenango, but 1-1, putting a lot of points on the board. I don't know, Eric. You've been very high on Bobby Fadden. It seems like every time we watch him, you get impressed yet again with something new that he is able to do.
Yeah, and they've run the ball really well. I sort of wish that we would have been able to see them play a full game last week, just because every little thing that some of these teams are doing, you really want to see them do it week after week, not have to wait a week, not get any kind of stall in their momentum like a Newcastle might have last week. But yeah, Fadden's been really impressive. Mohawk still needs to shore up its defense a little bit. I think that'll happen. They have the pieces there. They just need to get the reps. They just need to get their footing under them a little bit. A lot of personnel changes, but so far so good. I think they're kind of right around where they need to be right now if you're going to rank a top 5.
Number 4 coming in on our list, and 4, 3, and 2 were very difficult in going through. I personally was, seesawing all over the place here, but we have Newcastle coming in at number 4. Yes, they are 2-0. We understand that. Those first 2 opponents maybe not quite as quality. Had they beaten Highlands, had that game finished, Tim, I think easily they'd be up, if they won the game, that they'd be up in the 2, maybe even talking about number 1 range for sure. But this is a Newcastle team that is impressed in the early going. Now they're going to get a road test, and I think that's another big obstacle. They've won those 2 games, but they haven't even played on the road yet. That's going to be another challenge for them.
Yeah, anytime you have to get on the bus and travel and perform, it will be a challenge for them. It'll be a good challenge. I think Coach Mazzocco is going to look forward to that and putting, his players in that situation. I mean, you look at what Kyle Harris has done this year. I mean, it's just phenomenal. He's like, 386 yards passing, 221 yards rushing. I mean, 600 total yards between that. It's really phenomenal. And
using his legs for the first time, really, too.
Yeah, and then you can see why, though. I mean, the athlete, we've seen him on the basketball court. We've seen him grow as an athlete over the last few years. So this is an opportunity to really just see them, take advantage of opportunity here on the football field and use him as a dynamic player that he is. And, they're making plays. So the question there is, can their defense continue to improve? I mean, they've been giving up a lot of points. They've been outscoring teams, which fine in the end. The bottom line is you need more than your opponent. But I think, as this season progresses, what we're really going to keep an eye on is how good can this defense become? Because if this defense can shave 10 points off, or if this defense can shave even more than that off of what their totals they're giving up with the offense and what they're doing, then they become a real interesting story.
Talking about a team with great defense, number 3 in our power rankings. The Hounds Hammer, always impressive. That win over Northern Bedford County, and the way that they did it, again, without their top player in the end of it, their top rusher in Chase Mitchell-Tree did not play in that game. Didn't matter. They found a way. They grounded. They pounded, and time of possession was almost 3-1 over that Northern Bedford County. I mean, Eric, I know you haven't had a chance to see Wilmington yet, but they run that wing tee about as well as anybody can.
It's one of the most indefensible offenses in high school football, and not very many teams still run it like they do. Southern Columbia's even sort of strayed away from it a little bit. Cumberland Valley, which was a big wing tee team for years, they've gone away from it. If you can do it effectively, if you have the offensive line up front, you never know who's going to carry the ball. There's so many things that coaches can do to switch it up and give teams different looks. You can mix in passing with it. You never know who's going to touch the football if you have a lot of weapons like they do. And listen, that's going to make them very tough, because 2 things you must do in this state, and I have said this since day one that I started covering this sport. In the months of November and December, you have to have defense. You have to run the football. They can do both.
Give a shout out to Cale Ketterer, who had a rushing and kick return touchdown in that game, too, by the way, over NBC. So they're number 3. Neshannock comes in still at number 2, even after their loss last week. Tim, it's mainly because of we know what that offense can do, and their only loss is to, spoiler alert, the number 1 team in Elwood City. But talk about the Neshannock and what we're going to hopefully see for a bounce back for the Lancers here this week.
Well, I mean, you start with the quarterback, Gino Mazzacco, and what he brings to the table each week. Not just leadership, but consistent play. I mean, he's 21 of 39. He's 54% passing. Look at his running numbers. He has 43 carries, 233 yards. He's scoring touchdowns. He's averaging almost 9 yards a carry. I mean, these are really impressive numbers, and we haven't even talked about Akins yet, and what he can do. And then you get onto the defensive side. We're seeing that defense improve. Yes, they lost to Elwood City. Yes, it was a frustrating game on their side, because I think there was times they thought they were going to get off the field and couldn't do it. There was a big third down play, and the Sticks, they give credit to Elwood City. They were able to get that first down and really seal the deal. But they're going to get better. The defense, I think, again, we're going to talk about the same thing earlier. We know they can run the ball. We know they can be a dynamic big play team, because they have, the players to make the catches, and they've done that. So I think really the key for them is the defense. Can the defense become just a little bit more stingy and continue to grow and get off on third down? If they can get, force teams to punt the ball 2, 3, 4 more times a game, that's huge. Especially when you talk about possessions in high school football, 12-minute games. Sometimes you only get the ball twice a quarter. You feel fortunate if you get the 3 times in a quarter.
And Elwood City coming in at number 1. Eric, just real quick, it's been a fun start to the year. It now means even more with a game against Mohawk. We'll do that and fly right into our first preview here of Elwood City hosting Mohawk. Just talk a little bit about Coach Bradley's squad. I mean, he's not afraid to say it. They're not looking at the past. They're looking just at the present and what the future can hold. But right now, they're talking about doing things they haven't done in over a decade.
Think about what this team's also had to do the first 3 weeks, James. They narrowly escaped a Laurel team who, they're 0-3, but really had to fight tooth and nail to win that game. They get their second game canceled, not for any, not whether things that are out of their control. They get that game canceled. So they really want to build in that first week momentum. They're unable to do that. They come back and go on the road in what is the highlight game of the weekend. And really, I mean, they put 2-14. That's not an easy place to A, win a game, and B, get up by double digits there. So to me, it's the most impressive win of anybody so far. I think the Shannick is still, you really can't punish them for losing that game because they're the two best teams. And I do think the Shannick's got a really good chance to win out if they, like Tim said, their defense gets better. We know they have the big play capability. And that's the other thing that Elwood City did in that game that was so impressive. The Shannick's big play completely nullified outside of one touchdown run. Dom Cubelis, a non-factor. They took away one of the best weapons they have. Gino Mazzocco didn't attempt to pass in the second half. They really put the clamps on him running the football too. Their defense in that game was fantastic. And if they get that kind of defensive play, if they can get a little something more out of the quarterback position and they keep getting what they're getting out of Elijah Palmer-McCain, they are a legitimate championship contender. There's no question about it.
I'm glad you mentioned the big play because, Tim, in the game we covered last year of Mohawk at Elwood City, it was the big play mentality, and it was especially Blake Logan, who as the third receiving option was 7 or 8 catches in that game. Obviously, it's Bobby Fadden wearing number 4, not Jay Rona at quarterback this time, but it's going to be that same effect. Elwood City came in with a strong record, but Mohawk was able to put a lot of points on the board. But this is a completely different Elwood City defense. It's also a completely different Mohawk offense.
It is. It's an interesting matchup, but you look at what Mohawk has done with Bobby Fadden. I mean, he's a player who can really be a 50-50 type player. You can run with the ball with him. You can throw the ball with him. Blake Logan was really his top target that first game of the season. And it was, I think that connection is there. So if you add in Chapman and the other players that they have, there's a legitimate shot here, for I wouldn't say an upset. I think Elwood City's kind of the slight favorite going into that game. Mohawk's going to, if they could score points like they have shown here in the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the season, then yeah, I think it could be a dynamic show. It could be literally 35-30 game, 35-34 type game. It should be a lot of fun.
I know history doesn't matter, according to Coach Bradley, so any Elwood City fans, feel free to cover your ears if you don't want to hear the history. But the history is Mohawk has won 6 straight matchups in this series. Elwood City, last time they started 3-0 was back in 2011. Last time they started 4-0 was back in 1997. But if they can win this one, they are on track to be as the front runner for sure for the conference crown, which they haven't done since the 80s.
Yeah, and we're looking at Elwood City. I think when you're really going to get down to it, everybody knows about Elijah Palmer-McCain and what he can do. They're going to have to, like we mentioned earlier, somebody else to play, but they're going to need big play out of Chris Smiley. I mean, he's going to have to match Mohawk and, Bobby Fadden. Maybe not pass for pass, play for play, but he's going to have to drive for drive, definitely match him. And I think that's really going to come really important. Whoever really creates turnovers is going to have a huge advantage in this game.
You mentioned Smiley. He had 2 rushing touchdowns to go along with that long passing touchdown last week for Elwood City. That game, 7 o'clock. Our friends over at ECS will have the coverage of that one. We'll get you consistent updates on our 2 broadcasts. We'll do those games here in a moment. The other game we're not covering that is in section or conference play, Shenango 0-1 traveling to a 2-1 Northgate team. Eric, we've been talking about it. This Northgate team they got some studs. Darius Fields, 100-plus yards over each of the last 2 weeks, 5 touchdowns. They use a dual quarterback system. And you got a common opponent here, so just throw it out there. Shenango lost their only game to New Brighton 9-7. Northgate beat New Brighton 39-7. So it's going to be a challenge for sure for the Cats taking on the Flames, but this is still a hungry Shenango team that just wants to play some football.
Yeah, it really is. Hope that we see a good effort out of them. I know last weekend was emotionally charged, but also they really didn't get on the field. They really couldn't do much. Game canceled. You want to see them come back and play football and get their mind right, and maybe somewhere pull an upset. Something good's going to happen for that team this year. I don't know where, but it always works out that way. That Disney ending always kind of happens where something good's going to pop up and go that team's way, and you just hope that maybe it's this week. And if it's this week, if they can do it this week, then that really puts a crimp in a lot of things the rest of the way for a team like Laurel, because, again, that Northgate team is on Laurel's schedule. And we don't know exactly where those wins are going to start coming for that team. So they might get a little help from one of their rivals here. You never know.
That game scheduled for 7 o'clock. You'll be able to watch that one only on NFHS Network. That's the pay to watch service for the monthly subscriptions. You can also watch Newcastle at York. That's a non-conference game on NFHS Network. They got a pretty good dual threat quarterback in Radon Kuroda. He's got 7 of the team's 12 touchdowns for the York Cougars. 2-1 for York, 2-0 for Newcastle. This stretch coming up here, Tim, York and Knock. If they can get through those, then they're 4-0. No, that's not a joke. They play York this week, Knock next week. Fun, too, to get different names, different matchups. So they haven't played since 2005, Newcastle and York. But the Canes, I think, same thing. They saw what they needed to early in that game last week against Highlands. Would have loved to seen it finish out, but they know they're a team that is still kind of trending in the right direction. Defense will be the big Achilles heel, though, from what we've seen so far.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to. How much Coach Mo and his coaching staff can get out of his defense. I mean, they won a shootout against General McLean earlier in the year, open up the season. They scored 42 against Hopewell. Of course, last week was canceled or postponed, whatever you want to call it. No contest, but yeah, York and Knock. I mean, this is it. This is what it's all about. You got to come away with wins, at York and at home against Knock. I mean, it sounds silly, but that's exactly what they got to do. And key is, again, I think it's going to be a theme for most of our schools because other than Elwood City, I think we've seen the defense come up and play big. I think we're going to see what teams can have that improving defense each and every week. That by week 5, week 6 is hit a stride, and now that scoring 3 touchdowns against them is difficult, and we haven't reached that level yet. But I think right now Elwood City's defense has proven that they definitely are maybe the top of our county teams. The others like Newcastle and Neshannock and Chenango, whoever you want to talk about, we're going to talk about their defense. Can they successfully get off the field on third down? If they can do that, then, get short fields. Oh, can you imagine Newcastle with short fields?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a lot of fireworks going off.
The other Friday night non-conference game, Laurel at home, 0-3, taking on 1-1 Bishop Canevin. Canevin, as you heard Eric talk about, absolutely put a pummeling on Steel Valley. A shocking score there, 42-6 last week. But the week before that, they lost to Seton LaSalle, kind of a eyebrow raiser until you saw Seton LaSalle with another big win last week. That was a close game, 21-14. They still got Koloszewski back, Monte Mott, DeMar Olds, a couple of great skill position players. If Laurel can keep this one close, as you mentioned, 3 games by a combined 14 points. If Laurel can keep this one close, even if they do go 0-4, you almost got a call to win against an extremely talented Crusaders team.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, James, I cut out there for a sec, but I definitely think so about Laurel. Laurel still needs to run the football better. I was really taken aback by just how effective they are without Nathan Hill in the game, and I wonder how much that completely changed their game plan for the season when he got hurt. I mean, they did only have, a week to sort of figure out what they were going to do, or a week to reshuffle some personnel. Their fate right now rides on the right arm of Lucas Santini. If he can replicate what he did against Mohawk, if their defense can continue to play tough, they're another team where they need to get a couple breaks. Something good has to happen for them. But, they have pieces there. They just need to start running the football better and take a little bit of pressure off Santini. A little too one-dimensional, but they were one-dimensional. That allowed them to hang around Mohawk. So anything really is on the table with this team, I think, the rest of the way.
That wraps up the Friday games we're not covering. There is one Saturday game up in District 10, Kennedy Catholic at 0-1 hosting 2-1 Wilmington. Wilmington has never lost to Kennedy Catholic, and we did get official word about 2 hours ago. Yes, 100% this game is on. Kennedy had to cancel their game last week due to lack of numbers. At one point, they only had 12 on the roster for their opening week game, so glad that they've increased a little bit that they're going to be playing in that game. But we do have a message to pass along from Wilmington High School. They are off next week. They don't want to be off next week. They're still looking for a game. So if there's anybody out there who is interested in playing a game, that would be on Friday the 20th or Saturday the 21st. You can get in contact with us. We'll help you get in contact with Coach Fillion and Wilmington, or directly get in contact with Mike Copper there, the AD at Wilmington High School, because they want to play a game next week, and I can't say I blame them, Tim. You want to play ball.
Exactly. I mean, that's why, you get ready for the season is to play. And unfortunately, there's no one to play right now. Hopefully, with a little luck, somebody out there is in the same scenario and has the same week off and has an opportunity to say, yeah, let's get together, let's play this game, and let's compete. Because that's what every kid, every coaching staff, every school wants. They want to compete. So yeah, let's hope that it can be filled here. We got a little over a week. Let's see if next Wednesday night we're talking about the game that's been scheduled.
The two games will have coverage on Friday night. Let's start with the one where Tim and Lee will be going out of the county. Well, not far out of the county, but as close as you can get by leaving Lawrence County. Union traveling to Riverside. 0-2 Union, 1-2 Riverside. And two big storylines here. It's the first time Union football is ever playing a conference game not in the smallest division. They elected to play up in 2A this year. The other question is, which Aiden is it going to be? There's star quarterback Aiden Garcia, the senior. 5 touchdowns in his first 2 games. Did not play last week. It was Aiden Gatos, the freshman, who was behind center in their lone win. So who will we see? I'm not sure it matters. They're very similar in how they're playing, but they got a new coach again, Tim, and they're playing tough ball. They're putting points on the board.
I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Be honest, as you just mentioned, Garcia, played that first week. He had 26 of 47. Just phenomenal. 5 touchdowns and really did an amazing job. And then you look at what Union brings into the table. They're able to run the ball. I mean, you got, Max Thompson and you got Gianni Million, who both, played significantly in the game that you and I seen and had big games. And then, of course, you add in the quarterback and Lucas Stanley and what his dimension to the game. Obviously, I think the passing game can be developed, and I think it will be developed. It doesn't have to be 20 passes a game, but if they can get 7 to 10 and be successful on those 10 passes a game, I think that will really make that running game even more successful, and that's what they are, and it starts with Lucas Stanley and Maddox Thompson. I mean, those two are dynamic together in the backfield.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to see what they can do against Riverside, and Riverside is Robert Janis, as you mentioned, 55 touches, 240 yards, averaging over 4.36 running. I mean, it's amazing. It should be an interesting matchup between these two schools, and I'm really looking forward to see how Union handle this.
Yeah, Robbie Janis is a monster, 6'2", 210-pound running back. Didn't see him a lot last year. He was banged up, but saw him a lot as a sophomore. He's a quality player. Their O-line is not the biggest in the world, but they're all about the same size, and they're very deep on that O-line as well. The question I have for Eric here is, we know what's coming. Union Coach Nee's going to always have something up his sleeve, some new wrinkle to his offense. The question is, what is it you want to see most out of that Union offense to expand it even further?
I want to see those guys play a full game. That's what I think we need to see. And nothing against what he did in those couple of games where he pulled starters and took the extra week to play the extra scrimmage and all that. I want to see this team at full strength. They now are going to take this much more serious than what they did their non-con. They want to win their conference. I want to see this offense and this team at full strength, see what's under the table, or under the hood rather, and then we'll be able to judge them, I think, a little bit better than what we've seen early on. We know they have explosive plays. We know they can run the ball. We know that their offense, they hung with the Shannock for a little bit and then pulled guys in the second half. No more pulling guys. They're going to go the full 48 minutes. Let's see what this team is all about, and I think we'll have a better feeling for them going forward.
Tim Continenza and Lee Moan will have the call for you on that one at Panthers Stadium, 7 o'clock start. Union won the last time they played, by the way, in 2015, but lost the previous 7 games against Riverside. Again, it's all made up, and history don't matter. Friday night's all that matters, and the game that Eric and I will be at on Friday night is Neshannock hosting Rochester. 2-1 Lancers against 0-2 Rochester. Here's my factoid of the night for you, Eric. Rochester quarterbacks through the first 2 games are 3 for 11 for negative 11 yards and an interception. Rochester, obviously, kind of like Wilmington, they're all about the run game first and foremost, but they got to find a way to incorporate the pass. Otherwise, Coach Matzook's going to have a long season in front of them.
Yeah, they're going to be playing from behind if they can't throw the football Friday night, too. I really don't know what to expect from this Rochester team, other than they have pieces there. They have not been healthy the last, what's it been now, 4 years? I think 4 years in a row they've lost their starting quarterback, or 3 years in a row they lost their starting quarterback early in the year. Antonio Lori, we saw him during the basketball season at Union. They were great in that game, won that conference title, so we know he has a championship pedigree. He has really been a non-factor early in the season. Like to see if they get him involved a little bit more. I really, in this game, ideally, Neshannock wants to win. I almost want to see Rochester push them to the brink to see how Neshannock responds after last week. I just don't know that we're going to get that right now. I think this is going to be one PO Neshannock team, defend the home turf, and this one might get out of hand if Rochester can't balance out their offense.
Yeah, one thing that Neshannock said on the other side, and this is from our around the county correspondents there at Neshannock High School, they said point of emphasis this week, Tim, has been to start stronger, because in their games so far this year, it's kind of been a slow start at times. They've had to come from behind in a couple of those games, one that they couldn't quite catch up last week against Elwood City. Big point of emphasis to come out full throttle, and I think the first couple of possessions are going to be very telling for what Coach Bonjavengo and his crew will be bringing out on Friday night.
Yeah, I think they have the ability to really mix it up. Gino's a really intriguing quarterback. He has experience. He can throw the ball. You don't have to throw it all over the field, but you have to hit your receivers and have, your receivers run patterns, not drop balls. That was part of the problem they had. They didn't get certain players involved. You got a dynamic player in Cubelis. So, anytime the ball's in his hands, good things happen. So I think the challenge for them is to get all their players on the same page and being able to use them properly, in certain situations. You've got Anthony Akins. Anytime he has the ball in his hands running, you're going to get 3 to 4 yards. You're going to just pound around and get 3 or 4 yards, and then he's going to get to the edge. He's going to get parallel, and next thing you know, it's 35 yards downfield. That's who he is, and they got that. When they get that, they need to be able then to maybe run like a play action and use, and be able to hit one of his receivers, and they have the ability to do that. They don't have to go, for 80 yards. Great when you get a big play. Everybody loves a big play. No coaches will ever turn around and say, I don't want a big play. You all want them. But they have the ability really to mix it up and keep defenses really guessing. And I think that's my question is, are they going to get to that level? Because they have the players to do it. They have dynamic players that they can really mix it up and make a team wonder what they're going to run out of this formation, because they could do anything they want. Run the ball, throw the ball, run an option. There's so many things this team has the ability to do because of the players that they have and the dynamics that they bring onto the field. I think that is the next step for Neshannock. If they can get there, then the Big Red will be tough to stop.
And we want to see that Lancer defense get back to where we know they can be. Saw that, obviously, Paul McCain, 200 yards rushing last week. Week before that, Union doing a good job running the ball against them. You're going to get the power formations, the T formations out of Rochester. What will Neshannock do to be able to counteract that from the get-go? That will be the big key in my point for Friday night. Stop the run early and get a lead and make Rochester have to throw the football. 6 games on Friday night, 1 on Saturday afternoon. We'll have the call. Again, me and Eric will be up at Bob Legge Stadium as Neshannock hosts Rochester. Tim and Lee traveling down to Riverside as the Panthers host Union. Another one in the books. Give another shout out to Penn Ohio Bottled Water. Make sure you stay refreshed, enjoying hot or cold water at the click of a button, or enjoy a cup of coffee with their bottom-loading water cooler options. Beyond the Scoreboard podcast, as always, delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water. Big thanks to our producer, Matthew Flannery. Big thanks to Eric Thomas here from afar. Good job, Eric. Pleasure working and making it work one way or the other. For Eric, Matthew, my colleague here in the studio with me, Tim Continenza, I'm James Dotson saying so long. Stay tuned. Again, volleyball tomorrow as Laurel hosts Elwood City. Friday night, we'll have a pair of football games as Union travels to Riverside, Neshannock hosts Rochester. And before our next broadcast, we will also have a volleyball match on Tuesday as well. So stay tuned on the Lawrence County SportsNet, powered by LCAP. Your voice for Lawrence County sports.
The gold ball headed home to Newcastle.
This is